Imagine this. The world has just torn itself apart. The person you loved most, your anchor, your everything, is gone. You're adrift in a sea of grief. Every day a struggle just to breathe. And then, when you least expect it, a familiar ringtone cuts through the suffocating silence. It's a notification, a voicemail, and the number. It belongs to the one person who can't possibly be calling. The one person who is irrevocably no longer here. A voice from beyond the grave. Not a prank, not a glitch, but a chilling, undeniable message that shatters your fragile reality and pulls you into a nightmare you never knew existed. What would you do if your perfect life was suddenly revealed to be a meticulously constructed lie, woven with dark secrets, ancient conspiracies, and a betrayal so profound it would make your blood run cold? Stay with us, because today, we're diving deep into a story where a single voicemail unleashed a torrent of hidden truths, changing everything for one woman, forever. The soft glow of the bedside lamp barely pierced the oppressive darkness that had settled in Amelia's bedroom. It was past midnight, and the silence of the house was thick, broken only by the frantic thumping of her own heart. Beside her, Michael's side of the bed remained perfectly made, a testament to his absence, a stark reminder of the void he had left behind. 6 months. 6 agonizing months since the accident had snatched him away, leaving her adrift in a sea of grief. She had spent countless nights staring at that empty space, reliving every shared laugh, every whispered promise, every mundane moment that now felt like an invaluable treasure. The world had gone on, indifferent to her shattered existence. But for Amelia, time had stopped the moment the phone rang with the news. She had tried to move forward, to find some semblance of normalcy, but every attempt felt like a betrayal of his memory. Every sunrise was a fresh wound. Every sunset a painful reminder of another day he wasn't there. His scent still lingered on his favorite sweater, a cruel phantom that taunted her with what was lost. She clutched it to her chest sometimes, burying her face in the fabric, desperate for some tangible connection to the man she loved more than life itself. Tonight, however, something felt different. It wasn't the usual ache of loss, but a prickling sensation on her skin, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cool night air. Her phone, resting on the nightstand, suddenly vibrated. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't a call, but a notification, a voicemail. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the stillness. Who would be leaving her a voicemail at this hour? Most people texted or simply called. A voicemail felt old-fashioned, almost intimate. She picked up the phone, her fingers trembling slightly. The screen glowed, displaying a familiar number. A number she knew by heart, a number she had deleted from her contacts months ago, unable to bear the constant reminder. It was Michael's number. A cold dread seeped into her bones, chilling her to the core. This was impossible. Michael was gone. She had seen his casket lowered into the ground, felt the damp earth beneath her feet, heard the minister's somber words. This had to be a cruel joke, a glitch, a sick prank. But who would be so callous? She stared at the screen, a bizarre mixture of terror and a flicker of desperate hope warring within her. What if it wasn't a joke? What if there was some explanation, however outlandish? The rational part of her mind screamed for her to delete it, to ignore it, to dismiss it as a morbid hallucination brought on by grief. But another, far more primal part, compelled her to listen. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper from a part of her that refused to let him go. She pressed play, her thumb hovering over the screen as if to retract it at any moment. The faint static hiss that preceded the message sounded amplified in the silent room. Then, a voice. Michael's voice. Clear, unmistakable, resonant. It was slightly distorted, as if calling from a great distance, but it was undeniably him. Amelia gasped, a choked sob escaping her lips. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling any sound that might interrupt this impossible communion. "Amelia?" The voice began, a little hoarse, as if he had been struggling to speak. "My dearest Amelia, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. But I need you to know something. Something important." His words hung in the air, a chilling echo in the otherwise silent room. Amelia felt lightheaded, her vision blurring. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. But the warmth of his voice, the familiar cadence, the way he always slightly emphasized her name, it was all too real, too vivid to be a figment of her imagination. There are things you don't know, Michael continued, his voice laced with an urgency that sent a fresh wave of terror through her. Our life, our perfect life, it wasn't what it seemed. There was a secret, a terrible secret. He paused, and Amelia imagined him taking a ragged breath, just as he always did when he was about to reveal something difficult. It involves my family, and a promise I made, a promise I couldn't break, even if it meant everything. Amelia's mind reeled. What was he talking about? Their life had been perfect, or so she had thought. They had met in college, a whirlwind romance that led to a picture-perfect wedding and a cozy little house in the suburbs. Michael was a successful architect. She was a talented graphic designer. They had planned vacations, talked about having children, dreamt of growing old together. There were no secrets, no hidden agendas, no dark corners in their bright, open relationship. Or so she believed. Now his voice, a ghostly whisper from beyond the grave, was tearing down the very foundations of her reality. They'll try to cover it up, Michael's voice continued, growing weaker, more strained. They'll say it was an accident. But it wasn't. I was trying to expose them, to protect you from them. The word them hung in the air, loaded with an unspoken menace. Who were they? His family? His parents, who had always seemed so kind, so welcoming? His estranged uncle, a shadowy figure they rarely spoke of? Amelia felt a cold knot form in the pit of her stomach. The voicemail was cutting in and out now, the static growing louder, as if the connection to the afterlife was faltering. The key is in the old box, under the floorboards in the study. Don't trust anyone, Amelia. Not even Sarah. The message abruptly ended. The dial tone buzzed, a harsh, unforgiving sound that ripped her back to the horrifying reality of the situation. Amelia dropped the phone, her hand shaking so violently she could barely hold it. It clattered against the wooden nightstand, the sound echoing in the silent room. Sarah, her best friend, Michael's cousin, the woman who had been her rock through the darkest days of her grief. Don't trust even Sarah. The words spun in her head, a venomous poison. Couldn't be true. Sarah was family. Sarah had cried with her, held her, listened to her endless laments. Sarah had organized the funeral, handled the insurance, been there for every single breakdown. To suspect Sarah, it felt like an unspeakable betrayal. Amelia clutched her head, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Was she losing her mind? Was this grief playing cruel tricks on her? Or was Michael, somehow impossibly, trying to warn her from beyond the veil? The implications were staggering. Michael's death wasn't an accident. He was murdered, and his own family, or at least some part of it, was involved. Her perfect life, a carefully constructed facade, was crumbling before her eyes. The man she loved, the man she mourned, had been living a lie, protecting her from a truth so dark it had cost him his life. And now, that truth was calling to her, beckoning her into a labyrinth of secrets she never knew existed. The old box, under the floorboards, in the study, a desperate, chilling instruction from a ghost. The silence of the night no longer felt peaceful, but menacing, filled with unseen eyes and unheard whispers. She knew, with a terrifying certainty, that her life would never be the same. The nightmare had only just begun. The chilling words from Michael's voicemail had ripped apart the fragile peace Amelia had managed to construct around her grief. The sun, usually a welcome sight, now felt like a harsh spotlight illuminating the cracks in her reality. She spent the entire following day in a fog, the spectral echo of Michael's voice replaying in her mind like a broken record. Every interaction, every fleeting glance from a neighbor, every phone call felt tainted with suspicion. Sarah's cheerful morning text, usually a source of comfort, now felt like a veiled threat, a silent probe into Amelia's state of mind. She found herself scrutinizing Sarah's words, her expressions, searching for any hint of the sinister undercurrent Michael had warned her about. It was maddening, debilitating. Later that evening, fueled by a potent cocktail of fear and a desperate need for answers, Amelia found herself in the study. The room, once a shared space of quiet work and intellectual pursuits, now felt alien, imbued with a sinister aura. Michael's old desk, meticulously organized, stood in the corner. The faint scent of old paper and Michael's cologne still lingered, a bittersweet reminder of his presence. Her eyes scanned the floorboards, seeking the old box Michael had mentioned. There were so many. The house was old, built in the early 1900s, with creaking floors and quirky architectural details. She got down on her hands and knees, her heart pounding, listening for any sound in the silent house. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, sent a jolt of anxiety through her. The idea of someone watching, of Sarah's eyes on her, was a constant, nagging dread. She started tapping, listening for a hollow sound. It took nearly an hour, her fingers raw, her knees aching, before she found it. A section of the floorboard directly beneath Michael's favorite armchair, nestled in a corner behind a tall bookcase. It sounded different, a dull thud instead of the usual resonant creak. With trembling hands, she pried it open. Beneath it, tucked away in a shallow cavity, was a small, ornate wooden box. It was old, intricately carved, and looked as if it belonged to another era. Dust coated its surface, testament to how long it had been hidden. Her breath hitched. This was it. This was what Michael had been trying to tell her. She lifted the box, her hands shaking. It was surprisingly heavy. There was no lock, only a delicate clasp that she unlatched with a click. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, were several items. A thick, leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. A tarnished silver locket, engraved with a cryptic symbol she didn't recognize. And a small, folded piece of paper, brittle with time. She picked up the paper first, unfolding it carefully. It was a faded photograph. A group of people, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, standing in front of a grand, Gothic-looking mansion. In the center, a young woman with a striking resemblance to Michael, only much older, stared out with unnerving intensity. Her eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to follow Amelia, even in the faded image. Below the photo, scrawled in elegant, old-fashioned script, were the words, "The Keepers of the Oath." The Keepers of the Oath? What oath? What did this mean? Amelia felt a cold wave wash over her. This was far bigger than she had imagined. She opened the journal next. The first few pages were filled with elegant, looping handwriting, detailing what appeared to be a family history. Names, dates, strange rituals, and references to the legacy. As she flipped through the pages, she saw entries detailing Michael's own family tree, connecting him directly to the woman in the photograph. It was a lineage shrouded in secrecy, a tapestry woven with threads of power, influence, and something far more sinister. The journal spoke of a sacred trust, a secret organization that had existed for centuries, protecting a powerful truth and eliminating anyone who threatened to expose it. Michael's great-great-grandmother, the woman in the photo, was listed as one of the founding members. Amelia's eyes scanned the pages, absorbing the horrifying details. The organization had infiltrated every level of society, from politics to finance, ensuring their influence remained absolute. They maintained their power through fear and intimidation, and those who dared to question them simply disappeared. Or, as the journal subtly hinted, met with unfortunate accidents. Michael's voice, echoing in her mind, suddenly made terrifying sense. It wasn't an accident. I was trying to expose them. Her own husband, caught in the web of a shadowy, centuries-old conspiracy. She continued reading, the words blurring before her eyes. The journal entries grew darker, detailing violent purifications and the silencing of dissidents. A particular entry, dated a few months before Michael's death, caught her attention. It was written in Michael's own frantic hand, scrawled across the page as if in a hurry. They know. They know I'm trying to break free. They suspect I'm talking. I can't let them hurt Amelia. I have to protect her. The truth, it needs to come out. But how? They're everywhere. A gasp escaped her lips. Michael hadn't just stumbled upon this secret. He was actively fighting against it. He had been living under the constant threat of these keepers, risking his life to expose them, and he had tried to protect her. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Their perfect life, her happy marriage, had been a delicate illusion, maintained by Michael's desperate attempts to shield her from the darkness that surrounded his family. The locket, she realized, must be another clue. She picked it up, feeling its cold weight in her palm. The symbol on its surface was abstract, almost like a stylized eye, but with thorns radiating from its center. She had seen it before in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. On Sarah's ring, on a small pin her father-in-law wore on his lapel, on the crest of the old family estate. The symbol was everywhere, hidden in plain sight. It wasn't just Michael's family. It was a vast, sprawling network. A sudden, sharp rap on the front door shattered the silence. Amelia froze, her heart leaping into her throat. She instinctively slammed the box shut, stuffing it back under the floorboards, and hastily covered the spot with the armchair. Who could it be at this hour? Her mind immediately jumped to Sarah, to the them Michael had warned her about. Her palms were sweating, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Another rap, louder this time, followed by the faint sound of the doorknob rattling. Someone was trying to get in. Amelia scrambled to her feet, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape, a hiding place. The shadows seemed to lengthen, to twist into menacing shapes. The house, once her sanctuary, now felt like a trap. The secrets Michael had carried, secrets that had cost him his life, were now her burden. And she knew, with a terrifying certainty, that whoever was at the door was looking for them. She was no longer just a grieving widow. She was now inextricably linked to a dangerous, ancient conspiracy, a pawn in a game she barely understood, with her life hanging in the balance. The desperate whisper from beyond the grave had pulled her into a nightmare from which there might be no awakening. The insistent rapping on the front door continued, each thud reverberating through Amelia's chest like a drum of impending doom. She pressed herself against the wall in the study, barely breathing, her eyes fixed on the entrance to the hallway. Every nerve ending screamed at her to hide, to flee. But where? Her mind raced, replaying Michael's desperate warning. Don't trust anyone, Amelia, not even Sarah. The thought of Sarah, her confidant, her closest friend, being involved in this dark conspiracy twisted her gut. It was a betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter her last remaining illusions of safety. A voice, muffled but distinct, called out from beyond the door. Amelia? Are you there? Sarah. I saw your lights on. Sarah. Of course. A chilling calm settled over Amelia. She wouldn't let fear paralyze her. Michael had given her a warning, a purpose. She had to understand, to fight. Taking a deep, shaky breath, she smoothed down her clothes, attempting to compose herself. She couldn't let Sarah see her fear, her knowledge. She had to play along, to feign ignorance, to appear as the grieving widow Sarah expected. Slowly, deliberately, Amelia walked to the front door and opened it, pulling her expression into one of polite inquiry. Sarah? What a surprise. Is everything all right? Her voice, miraculously, sounded steady. Sarah stood on the porch, a concerned frown creasing her brow, a casserole dish clutched in her hands. Amelia, honey, I was worried about you. I called a few times, but you didn't pick up. I just wanted to check in. I made your favorite lasagna. Her smile was warm, genuine, almost disarmingly so. But in Amelia's mind, Michael's words echoed, transforming Sarah's kindness into something sinister, a performance. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sarah. Amelia lied, forcing a tired smile. I must have fallen asleep on the couch. I've been so exhausted lately. She stepped aside, inviting Sarah in. As Sarah entered, her gaze swept casually over the living room, lingering for a fraction of a second on the study door. Amelia caught it, a flicker of something unreadable in Sarah's eyes, quickly masked by an expression of sympathy. "It's completely understandable, sweetie. You've been through so much." Sarah set the lasagna on the kitchen counter, then turned to face Amelia, her expression softening. "You know, Michael was always so protective of you. He loved you fiercely." Amelia felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The words were meant to be comforting, but they landed like an accusation. "He was—" Amelia agreed, her voice tight. "He really was." They talked for a while longer, small talk, pleasantries. Amelia carefully steered the conversation away from anything substantial, feigning distraction, her mind working furiously. She noticed Sarah subtly observing her, her eyes scanning the room, as if searching for something. Was it the box? Did she know about the voicemail? Was she here to retrieve what Michael had left behind? Suddenly, Sarah's eyes lit up. "Oh, Amelia, I almost forgot. Michael had asked me to give you this weeks ago, before the accident." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden bird. "He said it was a good luck charm. He wanted you to have it." Amelia took the bird, her fingers brushing against the smooth, cool wood. Felt innocent enough. But then she noticed it, etched subtly into the bird's chest, almost invisible to the naked eye, was the same thorned eye symbol she had seen on the locket, on Sarah's ring, on Michael's father's lapel. It was the symbol of the keepers of the oath. And then she understood. This wasn't a good luck charm. It was a listening device. Her blood ran cold. Sarah had known. She had been sent, not just to check on her, but to monitor her, to see if Michael's final message had reached her. Amelia's hand tightened around the wooden bird. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, it left her breathless. She forced a grateful smile. "Oh, Sarah, how thoughtful. Thank you. Michael always knew how to surprise me." She moved to place the bird on the mantelpiece, deliberately turning it so the symbol faced away from her, towards the wall. Sarah's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly for a split second, a fleeting flicker of something like disappointment. Then it vanished. "Well, I should let you rest," Sarah said, gathering her purse. "Call me if you need anything at all. Okay?" After Sarah left, Amelia sank onto the couch, the wooden bird still clutched in her hand. The symbol stared up at her, a silent accusation. She knew now. This wasn't just a secret. It was a deadly, pervasive organization, and Sarah was a part of it. The keepers of the oath were not just a historical anomaly. They were alive, active, and dangerous. Michael's death wasn't an accident. It was a calculated assassination. He had been trying to expose them, and they had silenced him. And now they were coming for her. She recalled the journal entries, the purifications, the dissidents. It all made a horrifying sense. They had known Michael was trying to break free, and they had acted swiftly and mercilessly. The voicemail was his desperate, final act of defiance. His attempt to give her the truth, even if it meant endangering her further. She had to get the box. She had to finish what Michael started. The knowledge, the terrifying truth, ignited a fierce fire within her. Grief was replaced by a burning desire for justice, for vengeance. She wouldn't just be a victim. She would be an avenger. Amelia went back to the study, her movements precise and deliberate. She retrieved the box from under the floorboards, taking out the journal, the photograph, and the locket. She began to read, meticulously, every single word, cross-referencing names, dates, and events. The journal detailed generations of keepers, their rituals, their power, their methods of control. It spoke of a vast network of influence, of a bloodline that held the true power, and of others who were merely loyal operatives. Sarah, she realized, was likely one of those operatives, a loyal soldier in their clandestine war. The locket symbol, the thorned eye, recurred throughout the journal, described as the ancient emblem of the sacred trust, a symbol of their unwavering watchfulness and their ruthless retribution. The photograph showed not just Michael's ancestor, but other figures who now seemed chillingly familiar. A man who bore an uncanny resemblance to Michael's father, and another who could have been his great-uncle. The keepers were indeed Michael's own family, the very people who had feigned grief at his funeral, who had offered their condolences and support, all while orchestrating his murder. As the night wore on, Amelia pieced together a horrifying picture. The accident Michael had died in, a sudden, inexplicable brake failure on a winding mountain road, was no accident at all. It was a meticulously planned assassination. The journal hinted at a chemical agent that could cause brake failure, undetectable by standard forensics. It was a signature method, a clean way to eliminate inconvenient individuals. Michael had discovered their plan, he had been close to exposing them, and they had silenced him. A cold, hard resolve settled in Amelia's heart. She was no longer just grieving. She was enraged. Enraged at the betrayal, at the lies, at the sheer audacity of this secret society that had stolen her husband and shattered her life. She was alone, isolated, surrounded by enemies she had once considered family. But she had the truth, and with the truth she had a weapon. She would expose them. She would bring down the keepers of the oath, and she would avenge Michael's death. The journey ahead was perilous, perhaps even deadly, but she knew, with a terrifying clarity, that she had no other choice. The spectral whisper from the grave had awakened her, and now, she would make sure Michael's sacrifice was not in vain. The dawn that followed Amelia's sleepless night was not a gentle awakening but a harsh, unforgiving light. The journal, the photograph, and the locket lay scattered on the study floor, grim relics of a past she was now inextricably entwined with. The truth, raw and brutal, pulsed within her. Michael wasn't gone because of a tragic accident. He was murdered by his own family, the keepers of the oath. Her grief, once a dull, constant ache, had transformed into a burning inferno of rage and determination. She was no longer the fragile widow, but a woman forged in fire, ready to fight for the justice Michael had died for. Her first thought was to go to the police to present them with the journal, the voicemail, the horrifying evidence. But a chilling passage from the journal flashed in her mind. Our influence extends beyond the visible. Those who seek to expose us will find themselves silenced, their accusations dismissed as the ramblings of the unstable. The keepers had infiltrated every level of power, including law enforcement. To go to them would be a suicide mission, a direct confrontation that would be met with swift and ruthless reprisal. She was alone in this. She had to be cunning, strategic. Amelia knew she couldn't simply disappear. The thorned-eye bird, the good luck charm Sarah had given her, was likely a sophisticated listening device. They would be monitoring her every move, every word. She had to continue to play the grieving widow, to lull them into a false sense of security, while secretly working to dismantle their empire. It was a dangerous game. One false step could cost her everything, but she was beyond fear. Michael's sacrifice demanded more than fear. Her plan began to form, a desperate, intricate tapestry of deception and daring. She couldn't expose them through official channels, but she could use the very tools they wielded against them: information and manipulation. The journal was her most valuable asset. It contained names, dates, methods, details of their covert operations spanning centuries. It was the key to their destruction. But how to get it into the right hands without being intercepted? Amelia spent the next few days meticulously studying the journal, cross-referencing names with publicly available information. She discovered that Michael's father, a seemingly benevolent philanthropist, was one of the current leaders of the Sacred Trust. His mother, too, held a significant position, her elegant demeanor masking a cold, calculating mind. Sarah, as suspected, was a loyal operative, highly skilled in intelligence gathering and surveillance. They were everywhere, interwoven into the fabric of her life, silent predators disguised as family. She needed an ally, someone outside their pervasive network, someone with enough power and influence to counter the keepers. A name from the journal, an ancient enemy of the Sacred Trust, sparked an idea. A rival family, once powerful, had been systematically dismantled by the keepers centuries ago. Their last surviving descendant, a reclusive historian named Dr. Elias Thorne, was mentioned in a footnote, described as a minor nuisance, but a potential threat due to his extensive knowledge of their history. He was known for his unorthodox research and his unwavering belief in long-lost conspiracies. If anyone would believe her, it would be him. But how to reach him? Safely? The solution came to her in a flash of inspiration, born from Michael's own words in the voicemail. The key, in the old box. She pulled out the locket again, examining its intricate symbol. The thorned eye. It wasn't just an emblem. It was a code. She recognized the pattern from Michael's architectural designs, subtle geometric sequences he often used in his projects. She spent hours decoding it, remembering his casual lessons on symbology and cryptography. It was a series of coordinates, leading to a specific location. The coordinates led to an old, abandoned observatory on the outskirts of the city, a place Michael used to take her for stargazing. It was remote, secluded, and ironically, filled with childhood memories of simpler times. This was where he had intended to leave the information, a final act of defiance against the very people who had orchestrated his death. But what information? The journal provided a crucial detail, a hidden cache of digital files. A dead man's switch containing irrefutable evidence of the keeper's crimes, designed to be released if anything happened to him. He must have intended to transfer the journal's contents, along with other incriminating documents, to a secure server there. Amelia knew she had to get to the observatory, but Sarah and Michael's family would be watching. She had to create a distraction, a diversion that would draw their attention away long enough for her to slip away. She decided to use their own surveillance against them. Using the good luck charm Michael had given her, she started deliberately leaving clues for Sarah to find: half-finished letters to the police, fake research notes about Michael's accident, vague references to secrets. She needed to make them think she was investigating Michael's death, but in a way that wouldn't immediately raise alarm bells about the true nature of their organization. She wanted them to believe she was a confused, grieving widow, slowly stumbling onto the truth, not a woman who held the literal blueprint to their destruction. The tension in the house was palpable. Sarah's visits became more frequent, her questions more probing. Amelia maintained her facade, playing the role of the distraught widow perfectly, sometimes breaking down in tears, sometimes feigning anger at the perceived inadequacy of the police investigation. She even made a show of trying to move on, going out for coffee with friends she hadn't seen in months, posting innocent updates on social media, all designed to make her seem less of a threat. Finally, the moment arrived. She overheard Sarah on the phone, her voice hushed, speaking in coded language about the target's increasing agitation. They were worried. They were taking the bait. That night, Amelia set her final trap. She sent an anonymous email to a local news outlet, hinting at a major scandal involving a prominent family and a cover-up. She made sure the email contained just enough verifiable details to pique their interest, but not enough to reveal her hand. It was a calculated risk. The news outlet would likely investigate, and the keepers would have to divert resources to contain the story. It would give her a window of opportunity. Under the cloak of darkness, Amelia slipped out of the house, the journal, the locket, and a small, encrypted USB drive Michael had given her years ago, tucked securely in her bag. The thorned-eye bird sat on the mantelpiece, silently broadcasting her absence. She drove carefully, her heart pounding, but her resolve unwavering. The observatory stood stark against the night sky, a silhouette of broken dreams and forgotten truths. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the ghosts of happier times. She found the hidden compartment Michael had always joked about, disguised as a loose brick in the wall. Inside, a small, weatherproof casing. She connected the USB drive to an old, forgotten laptop Michael had stashed there, and began uploading the digital files. They were encrypted, layers upon layers of code, but the locket held the key, a complex cipher based on the thorned eye symbol. As the data transferred, file by file, Amelia felt a profound sense of purpose. This was for Michael. This was his voice, finally being heard. Suddenly, The distinct sound of a car pulling up outside shattered the silence. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approached the observatory entrance. They had followed her. The distraction hadn't been enough. Amelia's stomach dropped. She checked the laptop. The transfer was almost complete. It was a race against time. The door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure silhouetted against the faint moonlight. It wasn't Sarah. It was Michael's father, his face grim, his eyes cold and devoid of emotion. Behind him, another figure emerged from the darkness, Michael's mother. They were here. The keepers had arrived. "Amelia?" Michael's father said, his voice surprisingly calm, almost mournful. "You shouldn't have done this. You should have just let him go." His mother stepped forward, her elegant hands clutching a small, silver pistol. "We tried to spare you the pain, dear, but you forced our hand." Amelia clutched the laptop, the screen flickering with the last few seconds of data transfer. The truth, the full horrifying truth, was moments away from being released. This was it. The final confrontation. The echoes of Michael's last voicemail reverberated in her mind. A final plea, a desperate warning. She would not let him down. The cold glint of the silver pistol in Michael's mother's hand was not just a threat. It was a chilling confirmation of Amelia's deepest fears. The benevolent facade of her in-laws had crumbled, revealing the ruthless enforcers of the keepers of the oath. Michael's father stood stoically, his expression unreadable, a silent accomplice in the horrifying drama unfolding before her. The weight of the laptop in Amelia's hands felt like a lifeline, the fragile vessel containing Michael's final defiance. The data transfer indicator glowed, agonizingly slow, inches from completion. "You don't understand, do you, Amelia?" Michael's mother said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth, now a sharp, metallic whisper. "This is not about revenge. It's about preservation, about the sacred trust passed down through generations. Michael threatened that. He chose to betray us, and that choice had consequences." Amelia felt a surge of pure, unadulterated fury. "Consequences? You murdered your own son, your own flesh and blood." Michael's father finally spoke, his voice low and guttural. He chose his path. He knew the oath. He knew the price of breaking it. We offered him a chance to reconsider, to accept his destiny. But he refused. He put his own misguided idealism above the legacy. Legacy. The word echoed in the journal. A legacy built on lies, on violence, on controlling the lives of others. Amelia felt bile rise in her throat. "And you think I'm just going to let you get away with it?" Amelia spat, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Michael left a voicemail. He warned me. He gave me everything I needed to expose you." A flicker of surprise crossed Michael's mother's face, quickly replaced by a knowing smirk. "Ah, the phantom message. We expected as much. A desperate act, but utterly useless, dear. Without proof, it's just the ramblings of a grieving widow. And we have ways of ensuring such ramblings are never taken seriously." She gestured with the pistol towards the laptop. "That, however, is a problem." The data transfer was at 99%. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the deadly silence. She had one chance. "You can't stop it," she declared, her voice surprisingly strong. "It's already done. The truth is out there." It was a bluff, a desperate gamble, but she hoped it would buy her the crucial seconds she needed. Michael's father took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. "You're lying. You wouldn't be here if it was already out." Just then, the laptop screen flashed, displaying a single triumphant word: complete. A surge of exhilaration, brief but potent, coursed through Amelia. It was done. The encrypted files containing generations of their crimes, their methodologies, their network, were now safely uploaded to a secure, untraceable server, ready to be unleashed. Michael's last act of defiance had succeeded. Michael's mother let out a frustrated cry. "No!" She raised the pistol, aiming directly at Amelia's chest. "You fool! You've doomed yourself." But before she could fire, Michael's father grabbed her arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "Wait!" Eleanor. We need to know where she sent it. He turned to Amelia, his eyes piercing. Tell us, Amelia, where are the files? Give us the access codes, and perhaps we can still spare your life. Amelia met his gaze, her fear replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. Never. She threw the laptop to the ground, shattering it beyond repair. It was useless to them now. It's gone. To someone who will make sure the world knows who you truly are. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. She thought of Dr. Thorne, the reclusive historian, the man who believed in forgotten truths. He was her only hope, her unseen ally. A profound silence descended, thick with menace. Michael's parents exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. Then Michael's father nodded slowly. Very well, he said, his voice now devoid of any emotion. You have chosen your fate, Amelia, and with it you have chosen Michael's ultimate legacy. A legacy of purification. Amelia braced herself, knowing this was the end. But she felt no fear, only a strange sense of peace. She had honored Michael's last wish. She had completed his mission. His death would not be in vain. Just as Michael's mother raised the pistol again, a cacophony of sirens erupted in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Red and blue lights flashed through the observatory windows, painting the dusty interior with an eerie glow. Michael's parents froze, their expressions shifting from cold determination to utter shock. How? Michael's father whispered, his voice laced with disbelief. Amelia allowed herself a small, bitter smile. The anonymous email, the subtle hints she had planted, designed to make them react, to draw attention to themselves. She hadn't just sent information to a news outlet. She had meticulously crafted a trail that would lead authorities directly to the observatory, using Michael's family's own paranoia and quick reactions against them. They had come for her, convinced they could silence her, and in doing so had walked directly into their own trap. The police burst into the observatory, weapons drawn. Michael's parents, stunned and disoriented, offered no resistance. As they were led away in handcuffs, Michael's mother cast one last venomous glance at Amelia, a silent promise of retribution. But Amelia knew that their power was broken. The keepers of the oath had been exposed. The era of their unseen control was over. In the days and weeks that followed, the story of the sacred trust exploded across the national news. Dr. Thorne, having received the encrypted files and Amelia's subsequent message through a secure, prearranged channel, became the unlikely voice of truth, meticulously detailing centuries of their crimes. The public outcry was immense. Governments launched investigations. The Keepers Network, once a pervasive shadow, began to unravel under the harsh light of public scrutiny. Amelia's life, however, remained forever changed. She was no longer just the grieving widow. She was a survivor, a witness, a catalyst for justice. The echoes of Michael's voice, his desperate plea from beyond the grave, no longer haunted her with fear, but resonated with a quiet strength. He had left her a legacy, not of pain, but of courage. The house felt different now. The shadows were still there, remnants of a terrifying past, but they no longer held power over her. She knew that the fight for justice was a long one, that the wounds left by the keepers would take generations to heal. But Michael's sacrifice had ensured that the truth, finally, would see the light. And as she looked out at the sunrise, a new, tentative hope bloomed in her heart. The world was still a dangerous place, but she was no longer alone, and the unseen legacy of Michael's courage would forever guide her path. And so, the echoes of a voice from beyond the grave finally brought light to the darkest corners of a centuries-old secret. Amelia, once a grieving widow, became a warrior for truth, her courage ignited by the desperate final message of the man she loved. Her story reminds us that sometimes, the greatest betrayals come from the people we trust most, and the most profound truths are hidden in plain sight. It's a testament to the enduring power of love, the relentless pursuit of justice, and the chilling realization that even in death, some voices refuse to be silenced. What would you have done if faced with such a terrifying legacy? How far would you go to uncover a truth that threatened to consume you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, sometimes the past isn't just history. It's a living, breathing shadow, waiting to claim its next victim. Until next time, stay vigilant and question everything.